wildfires, extreme heat waves, droughts, and floods. All of these recent events can at least partly be attributed to climate change. For over 100 years, humans have been burning fossil fuels for energy, releasing greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. This causes the Earth to warm, leading to climatic changes that have devastating impacts for human livelihoods and biodiversity. Over the past decades, scientists and activists have been ringing the alarm bells about the dangers of global warming, yet their concerns have had little impact. Temperatures have continued to creep up. The only way to solve climate change is for countries to cooperate on a global scale. However, not everybody agrees on the importance or even the reality of anthropogenic climate change. Even prominent figures, such as world leaders, have blatantly denied the existence of climate change, despite the overwhelming evidence proving its urgency and demonstrating that humans are the cause. In its most recent report, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change states that any further delay in slowing climate change and adapting to its impacts will miss a brief and rapidly closing window of opportunity to secure a livable and sustainable future for all. Therefore, any attempt to stall actions against climate change can pose a serious threat to the prosperity and even survival of humanity. So, if climate change denial is so dangerous, should it be censored? To answer this question, we first need to examine the idea of free speech. Article 19 of the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights states, "Everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression." In the modern world, the principal value of free speech is that it promotes the kind of discussion that is essential for democracy to work efficiently. However, is it possible to justify placing limits on free speech in certain cases, even in a democracy? Restriction of a fundamental right, such as free speech, is a major action that should only be considered in highly relevant matters. For example, in many countries, it is illegal to deny the Holocaust by the Nazis during the Second World War. This form of censorship is justified as a measure to prevent the spread of hate. The main argument against restricting free speech is that it could lead to further human rights restrictions by governments and policymakers. This is the so-called slippery slope argument. However, countries where Holocaust denial is restricted, such as Austria, Spain, and Germany, continue to operate as well-functioning democracies. This shows that the slippery slope argument is not well-founded. Furthermore, Article 19 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights states that restrictions to the freedom of expression shall only be such as are provided by law and are necessary for respecting the rights of others, public health, or morals. Since climate change poses a threat to human rights and public health, it can be argued that denying it would perpetuate these threats. Based on this argument, it could be valid to restrict climate change denial, similarly to the restriction of Holocaust denial. However, some people argue that restricting climate change denial can actually backfire. For example, some say that instead of investing time and resources into silencing climate change denial, it is more effective to use these resources to address the climate change problem itself by, for example, contributing to a shift away from a fossil fuel-based energy system. Another argument against restricting climate change denial is that this action can actually strengthen the stance of the deniers. Such an outcome is possible in any case of censorship. For example, as stated in an article that argues against silencing anti-vax campaigns during COVID-19, widespread deplatforming of anti-vax campaigners is unlikely to dissuade those sympathetic to these messages, but rather reinforce their strongly held beliefs about vaccine conspiracies while deepening their mistrust of public health authorities. Evidently, there is no clear answer to the question, should climate change denial be censored? Some argue that restricting free speech is never a good idea. However, in certain cases, such as the restriction of Holocaust denial, some degree of censorship has proven to be useful. In any case, climate change is a critical problem that requires drastic and immediate action. Climate change denial can halt or prevent this action. However, is censoring climate change denial the most effective solution? In this video, we have presented some key arguments on both sides of this debate. We leave it up to our viewers to ponder this question and draw their own conclusions.